Good afternoon. I'm Michael Lauren Prue, and on behalf of Command Communications, I would like to thank you for joining us in the NAVAIR booth here at Sierra Space. We've had a wonderful lineup of speakers today, and that continues now with Mr. Shelby Butler. He's here with the Small Business Program Office, and he's going to talk to you about how to do business with NAVAIR, how to be prepared, and what to do when responding to opportunities. Now, this panel is great because we're here with you live. We are also live streaming on LinkedIn and Facebook. So we'll have questions from our audience at the end, as well as coming in virtually. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Shelby Butler and the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, small businesses! Thank you all for joining us today at today's event, Sierra Space. It is my pleasure to welcome you here and to give you a view into how to do business with NAVAIR. My name is Shelby Butler, and I am the Director of the Office of Small Business Programs at NAVAIR. And our goal is to prepare you to be defense industrial base ready. Next slide. Our command focuses its energy on our sailors and Marines. Since its inception, NAVAIR's goal has been to provide full life cycle support of naval aviation aircrafts, weapons, and systems operated by sailors and Marines. This includes research, design, development, systems engineering, acquisition, test and evaluation, training facilities and equipment, repair and modification, and in-service engineering and logistics support. We rely on our team members, civilian, military, and our industry partners to adhere to these principles and provide our sailors and Marines with the latest technology and the ability to sustain legacy systems, weapons, and aircraft. Specifically, NAVAIR has 5 affiliated PEOCS, that provides aviation common systems and commercial services. PEOA is comprised of the Air Anti-Submarine Warfare, Assault, and Special Mission Programs. PEOT covers the Tactical Aircraft Programs. PEO-UNW has the Unmanned Aviation and Strike Weapons Programs. And PEO-JSF is our Joint Strike Fighter Program. Additionally, NAVAIR has several divisions at the Naval Air Warfare Centers, or NAWCs, which support the overall efforts essential to support the delivery of the products and meet the requirements assigned that support the warfighter. Namely, the Fleet Readiness Centers, East and West, FRC, handle the depot level maintenance, which conduct maintenance, repair, and overhaul of the U.S. Navy aircraft engines, components, and support equipment. Our small business deputy director for the FRC is Ms. Teresa Bebout. NAVAIR Aircraft Division, or NAWC AD at Lakehurst, New Jersey. It provides full spectrum life cycle responsibility for aviation support equipment and aircraft launch and recovery equipment. Our small business deputy director there is Ms. Dawn Chartier. NAVAIR Aircraft Division, or NAWC AD PAX, Production River. They buy the services and select products that support the program offices. They provide the faces for the spaces at the program offices and support requirements throughout the life cycle, including air vehicle engineering, air vehicle modification, and instrumentation, airworks, which you will hear from directly tomorrow at this location. And they also provide propulsion and power, unmanned aircraft systems, U.S. Naval Test Pilot School, and warfare analysis. Our small business deputy director for NAWC AD PAX is Mr. Larry Butts. NAWC Training Systems Division, or NAWC TSD, in Orlando, Florida. They perform research, development, test and evaluation, acquisition, and support of training systems, provide inter-service coordination and training system support for the Army, Marine Corps, and Air Force, and they perform such other functions and tasks as directed. Our Small Business Deputy Director there is Miss Leslie Faircloth. NOC Weapon System, or NOC WD, over in China Lake, and also includes Point Mugu, California. NOC WD's land test range is located in China Lake, and its sea range test range is at Point Mugu. Their focus is on weapons development. NOC WD is involved in many high-tech areas, including battle space integration, airborne electronic attack, aircraft survivability, counter improvised explosive devices, directed energy, robotics, energetics, and more. Our Small Business Deputy Director at NOC WD is Mr. Derek Hu. Next slide. Here's our general PLC contact information along with our website, which includes links to several areas. And I just want to point out our industry one-on-one meetings and our principal deputy program manager contact list. And want to encourage you to definitely contact us for that industry one-on-one meeting with one of our staff members. It's a world-renowned industry one-on-one meeting, if I must say so myself. Okay, and I will say that the other specific POCs for our different sites, along with their contact information and NAICS codes, are in the backup slides, and this whole presentation will be available at that website after this event. Next slide. This slide details our top 10 NAICS codes and for large businesses and small, and also our top 10 for small businesses. Takeaway here is you can see that the aircraft manufacturing is still, it used to be an order of magnitude higher than our largest small business NAICS codes, but now it's approximately 4 times that number. But we are slowly moving into our sustainment, and those small business numbers are increasing because of our shift to sustainment. All right. And I will also note that the NAICS codes, the higher ones for small business, 541330, and for engineering services, and our 541715 represents our CIBR and STTR work. Next slide. And now, the moment we've been waiting for, our panel discussion with our august speakers. I ask you again to hold all your questions until the panel speakers have completed their initial remarks. So we will begin with what you will learn, need to know, and how to be prepared for doing business with NAVAIR, what doors to knock on, and what to consider when responding to opportunities. We have Ms. Teresa Bebout, our FRC Small Business Deputy Director, for that discussion. Over to you, ma'am.
Hello, how are you? That loud enough? He told me I had to talk loud. I hope you can hear me. I believe in kinetic learning. How many of you that are up here listening, how many of y'all are from small business? Yes, it worked. We got who we looked at. So you're here now. What's next? Are you prepared? Do you know it takes time, money? Time, it can be 18 months to 2 years before a contract is awarded. I asked Secretary of the Navy, Mr. Del Toro, I said, sir, he was a small businessman. That's why y'all got so much attention from the Navy lately. And I said, sir, what would you think is the most important thing that you wish somebody had shared to you or for you as a tip. You know what he said? Persistence. Persistence, and then more persistence. Sounds kind of simple, doesn't it? But we do sometimes forget. So, as I said, you're here, now what? So when he was telling you I was going to tell you how to knock on the doors and what to do, I started out as a journalist major. So I'm going to give you who, what, why, where, when, how, but not necessarily in that order. So what do we want? We want to become part of the, okay, contracts. Yeah, he's right. We want to become part of the industry base. We want you to be part of the industry bus. So that's what? That's the what? That's the big what? Now, who? You need to enlist your network. And you may not know how large your network is. So let's just say if you've just gotten, you decide you want to have the business, hopefully you went to your small business development center. But just because now you got your business and you learned all the places you got to go register, that doesn't mean you stop with the Small Business Development Center. They got a lot of stuff for you. They actually have the mentorship by the Service Corps of Retired Executives. That's SCORE, SCORE. They had the Women's Business Centers. The Women's Business Centers got a lot of Mentor Protege Award, non-peri awards this week. And they're the WBCs. You got the Veterans Business Outreach Service, and all of these will help you through every step. Just because they got you started, they're there to help you walk every step of the path. Think of them as mom and dad. You know, mom and dad, once you started walking, they didn't leave you, right? They walked beside you. They help you out. Your Apex Accelerators, they're your PTACs. They have a new name, Apex Accelerator, help you reach the peak faster. And it's critical that you talk to them, again, at all stages, because they help you engage and they help introduce you to who you need to talk to. But here's one that I just found out about, Project Spectrum. Anybody heard about them? I thought it was just another cyber office, right? No. Who here has problems getting the fleet clearance, the facility clearance? Anybody? The Project Spectrum will help you tell you everything you need to do and walk you through it. Also, CMMC, right? CMI. All these things that some of you are going out and paying others for, it's free. That's why I'm saying use your network. That's one of the biggest tips I can give you. Who do you need? All those people I just listed. Sorry. But I did not realize that Project Spectrum actually gave you free courses, and they will assign a person to work with your company, and that will be your person to call. So when you're writing Christmas cards, don't forget your PTAC, and don't forget your Project Spectrum person. Where? What doors do you need to knock on? Where? There are 10 commands in the Navy. All of their names pretty much tell you what they do. Sort of, kind of, like NAVFAC, Navy Facilities, NAVSUP, Navy Supplies, all the consumables. But NAVFAC also does car rentals if it's more than a year-long rental, right? NAVC, all the boats and ships, you think, right? NAVAIR does some sea surface, what do you call them? I don't know if you call them boat or ships as they're riding on the surface, but they do sea stuff. But NAVAIR, as he's told you, does mainly in aircraft and weapon systems. So that's who you go. Each of the commands have their own authorities. But if you come to any of us and you ask for your one-on-one, when we hear your capabilities, we'll help you find the right person if it's not us. And the why goes along with the what. Because DOD needs a stronger small business industrial base. America needs a stronger small business industrial base. And our job is to help you find your maximum opportunities, which is all the stuff that we're sharing tonight. So now how? I don't know how much time it is, but now how? Engage early. Look at the forecast. You can go to the Department of the Navy website and find the forecast, the long-range forecast for every single Navy command. Respond to your RFIs and your source of SALT notices. Your source of SALT notice and your RFI is the one time that you guys get a vote on what kind of acquisition strategy we're going to do. If we send it out there and we say we're sending it sole source and you know you can do it, respond. If we send it out there and we say we're going to do it full and open and you know you can do it, respond. And work together. I hate to use this, but this is the only good cliche I can think of. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. So right now, let's say all of you guys sell blue paint, right? And the source of SALT comes out to be full and open competition. Call each other. Hey, respond to the source of SALT. We now know that there are 7 small businesses, and all we need is 2 or more, right? The rule of 2, that can sell blue paint. So what are we going to do? We're going to change our strategy. We're going to make it a small business set aside. And then once we make it a small business set aside, then you can go back to competing with each other. And good luck to all of you. And that's what I mean by encourage your peers to report. But don't just send them your capability statement that you printed out 10 years ago and it's still the same. When there's a source of SALT or an RFI, tailor your capability statement to what they're looking for. Answer their questions. Respond. Let them know how you can fill what they're looking for. RFPs and RFQs. This is the important part. When a request for proposal or request for quote comes out, 3 important sections. Section C is the statement of work. Section L says, hey, this is what we want to see from you. This is the information we want, and this is how we must see it. And section M, that is the section that says, when you give it to us, what we ask for, the way we want to see it, we are going to evaluate it. We have to evaluate it the way we say we're going to evaluate it. So make a checklist. This is what they asked for in section M. This is how they want to see, section L. This is how they want to see it. And this is how they're going to evaluate it. Look back over it when you're done. Make sure that it all flows, that it all matches. So, most importantly, make sure you get them in on time. Even if you're going to send them electronically, you can't send them electronically at 4:59 on the day they're due at 5 o'clock because they're not going to get there. And the FAR flat out says if you send it electronically that late, it's late. No excuses for anything going down. But those are the tips, how to get in the door. And when you call the program list, make sure you don't call and say, hey, I can do anything you need done from soup to nuts. Because the program manager can say, I don't want soup, I don't want nuts. Click. Hey, I've been looking over NAVAIR things. This is our problem. This is your problem. And I have our solution. Have you got 5 minutes to talk about it? Don't just say out there, what do you need from me? Tell them what you can do for them.
Thank you, Ms. Bebop. All right, we will continue with an eye-opening perspective on a firm's often overlooked and greatly underappreciated company profile, which is located on the Small Business Administration's dynamic small business search. For that, we will go over to Mr. Larry Butts. Over to you, sir.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Great to see you again. And like the Vice CNO mentioned, it's like a family reunion when you come back to these. This is, my maybe 5th or 6th one of these, and it's always nice to see those friendly faces out there that I usually see. So as Shelby mentioned, Mr. Butler mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about that slick sheet that you small businesses have on the internet 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if it's properly filled out right, this slick sheet tells a story. It tells you a complete story of what your company can do to the most important people in the acquisition process, the market research practitioners, the people who are out there looking for these small businesses to do the work for them. So I want to kind of touch a little bit on what the small business profile is for every one of you who's registered in SAM. I'm going to give you some of my observations, and they're strictly that. Observations that I've seen through hundreds and hundreds of interviews with small businesses just like you. And I have my little script here. I'm not going to read it, so fear not, but it's just to jog my memory, if you know what I mean. So these are on SAM, and they are located in the SAM profile that you filled out back in 2000 or even further back. And no harm, no foul when your small business profile doesn't look like it should. You weren't thinking about that back when your BD persons were, or even yourself, were putting that information in. So this is an opportunity to get into that system and fix it. Easily found by Googling SBA DSBS, simple like that. SBA, Small Business Administration, DSBS, Dynamics Small Business Search. Now, the first section you're going to notice in that profile, and go ahead, throw your cage code in, take a look at what I'm seeing as an analyst, and kind of grade yourself. The first thing I want you to pay attention to is your organization ownership and certifications. That's where you say whether you're a SDB, women-owned small business, service-disabled veteran-owned small business, a hub zone, or any of those other types of socioeconomic categories. Have those right. Make sure you put that in there if it doesn't auto-populate, because that's the first thing I'm looking for, especially since the White House issued the executive order 13985 for the equity in small business across the entire federal government. I don't know if you know this, but our goals for small disadvantaged businesses are raising from 5% to 15% by 2025. That's a significant increase, and it's a great time to be an SDB. So you need to brag about it because our goals keep going up each year. So the next section of this profile is an opportunity for you to auto-populate, and it does auto-populate your 8A status. And 8A status it's a great tool that the Small Business Administration has. So make sure that the 8A, if you're not thinking about becoming an 8A, consider it, because we're always looking for those companies that would allow us to do direct awards, in some cases up to $100 million. I hope you knew about that for certain cases for the Alaska Native type companies. The next section is hub zones. There is a website that you just all you have to do is go hub zone map. Just type it in like that. Make sure that you're not sitting in a hub zone. Oftentimes I interview a company and lo and behold, they're sitting in the middle of a hub zone, been there for 20 years and never knew that they were in a hub zone. Our numbers are hard to get for the hub zone. So I appreciate you doing the work for me, because if I interview you, I'm going to look, and I'd love to see if we can get you into the ecosystem as a hub zone. The next section I want to kind of pick on is my pet peeve with these things. It is called the capabilities narrative. And you wouldn't believe how many times I see a company come in, well-meaning, experienced company, many years of working for the federal government, who have none given under their capabilities narrative. None given. If I'm reading hundreds of these and I'm doing my market research. If I punch in a cage code, or excuse me, if I punch in a NAICS code and I've got 150 541330s to go through, and I'm scrolling down this group and I see none given for a capabilities narrative, I'm stop reading that profile. What that ought to be is your best elevator speech. If you walk the floors here, you're giving your best elevator speeches. If the Secretary of the Navy walked in today, what would you tell the Secretary of the Navy? And I guarantee it's not none given. So I'm making a big point about this because, you believe it or not, I see this very, very often. The next section I want you to pay attention to are your NAICS codes. Now, some of the obvious things I've seen are heavily engineering firms, software developing firms, things with a very, very scientific and technology nature that do not have research and development. So keep that in mind when you're going through your NAICS codes, is to try to think outside the box. Try to think if there is a portfolio piece of your portfolio that has anything about research and development, engineering, make sure you're including it. So oftentimes our analysts go through and are just looking for NAICS codes, which is not the best way to do it, but it's obviously a tool. The next section in there is your keywords. The keywords are a tool that we use to look for, I think your example was blue paint or paint, R&D. Mum T is a new one out there. If you've got it part of your descriptive descriptive words in your portfolio statement or your portfolio, you got this wonderful PowerPoint program that you present to all your potential buyers. Take the action words. Take those words that describe your portfolio and stick them into keywords, because you never know what an analyst is going to use. We may use brand names. We may use just common street terms. You never know. When in doubt, populate keywords with those keywords. Oftentimes I see none given, and you're not going to be found on a keyword search. The last little piece is one of my favorites. It's called the performance history. It's down at the bottom. 98% of the time it's missed, even by those seasoned small businesses out there. This performance history, as in parentheses, references next to it. References like in a resume. You receive a resume from a potential employee, and that resume gives out that track record, that where they've been, what they've done. This is exactly what happens when you fill this out. And when you fill this section out at the bottom of this profile, you'll create little boxes. And you can get up to, I've seen 26 of these little boxes all in a line. Each box has 7 lines of data. At the top goes the name of the organization you're working with, NAVAIR, NOC-AD, etc. Below that is a contract number. You could put that in. The next 2 lines are a start and end date for that contract. Next below that is a scope, how much the money is or how much the dollar amount is. And the last 2 lines are a name and a phone number of a point of contact, maybe a core, PM, somebody you're working with in that organization. So what you've just laid out to me is sort of like a lot of the companies, they have a final slide when you're getting ready to do the brief and you're just wrapping up. You got all the patches and insignia all over the page, bragging about all the people, and that's good. I like bragging about all the organizations you work with. This literally is your patch page at the bottom. And it tells that story, tells the story of what you've been doing in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And when I read that as an analyst, it allows me to think about that company's ready to go. It doesn't matter if it's government, as a federal government entity like DOD, it could be a civil organization, it could be even as a subcontractor, doesn't matter, but it tells me experience, that pedigree of that company. It's your patch page. So utilize it. Give me 26 of those things are your best things out there, but be aware that anybody can read this. Remember I mentioned it was a slick sheet out there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. No login required, as you're going to find out when you do your market research and you look at it, and you look at your own, you're going to see anybody can see it. So if you don't want to talk about DIA and all those organizations that may be on the high side, you don't do it. What you can do is at the bottom, at the top page, says classified military contract. At the bottom, see Joe Bonat's your CEO, and you're still you're communicating a concept that you're working on the high side and you don't want to advertise it. So take a look at it, go home, utilize that website, SBA, DSBS. You can't miss it, and see what yours measures up to. And I appreciate the time I've had today. Back over to Mr. Butler.
Thank you, sir. And now that you are ready for prime time, we will share our observations about the importance of teaming strategies as a means for small businesses to gain and continue working with NAVAIR. We have Miss Leslie Faircloth to give that discussion. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shelby. Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here in front of you today. And as Shelby mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the importance of teaming for small businesses to get their foot in the door with the Department of the Navy or to continue to receive work with the Navy. So what is teaming, right? So it's a lot of different things. You could be a sub to a large prime. You could be a sub to another small. You could be a member of a joint venture. That's becoming more and more popular. Joint ventures between two or more small businesses, or joint ventures between mentor and protege. It can also be a strategic partner. So maybe you don't have contracts yet with that strategic partner, but you're planning for them. And that's really important, is to plan ahead. I'll talk a little bit more about that. So what is the importance of teaming for small businesses, especially when they're looking to break into doing business with DoD and specifically with the Navy? So pursuing contracts with partners does a few different things for small businesses. So first of all, it will provide you with experience. And in some cases, it will provide you with the opportunity to gain past performance, right? So you want that experience and that past performance credit to help build your resume, so that when you are ready to start bidding as a prime, you've got that in your back pocket. So pursuing contracts with partners can also provide opportunities for business growth, providing resources through informal or even formal partnerships like mentor-protege programs within the SBA, mentor-protege programs within the DoD, or it could also be an informal mentoring process. Teaming can help impact your probability of win, especially when you've put together and assembled a strong team that covers all the major or critical aspects of an acquisition. Because when we're looking for what we're looking for in your proposals is a total solution, right? We don't want just a piece of it. We want the total solution. So your business partners can help you bring that total solution. Has anybody heard of the term competitive? Okay. And Teresa alluded to some of this in her blue paint analogy. So a competitive is essentially a business that can be both a competitor or a strategic partner. And usually it's because you share either small business status or socioeconomic status. So there are two ways that competitives can help. So the first way is, like Teresa mentioned, if you know that there's a requirement out there and your company is capable, and let's say you're service-disabled, veteran-owned small business, maybe you know of another service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that also has a real similar capability. If you want to increase your chances of the government setting that acquisition aside for service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses, I would definitely advise to reach out to your other SDVOSBs and say, hey, let's see what we can do about influencing the set-aside decision here. So when the government comes out and asks for requests for information, sources sought, conducting industry days, make sure you're showing up with your SDVOSB competitors, right? So if we can find that we're meeting that rule of two, then you've got a much better chance of getting a set aside. All right, another way that competitives can be helpful is if you're teaming with your competitive. So what I mean by that is, if we want to leverage a competitive in order to meet what's called the limitations on subcontracting. If you're not familiar with that term, you're going to want to look it up. It's very important in government contracting. But essentially, limitations on subcontracting mean the prime has to do 50% of the work. So we'll change socioeconomic status here. Let's say you're a woman-owned small business and you're bidding on a woman-owned small business set-aside. If you bring another woman-owned small business into the fold as a subcontractor, together, you as the prime and your similarly situated entity, the other woman-owned small business, together you can meet the 50% requirement. So that's extremely helpful. And that's a relatively new concept, Within the past couple of years, it's been put into federal acquisition regulation. So I've seen companies really been able to leverage those competimates by bringing them on board and helping them to meet that 50% requirement. Another way that teaming can assist is, well, to be honest, a lot of solicitations that come out they're asking for submission of your teammates' information, right? So many times the government is not just interested in the past performance of the prime, but oftentimes we're interested in past performance and experience of the subs, especially if it's a sub that's going to be performing a significant amount of work. So that's also very, very important. And you want to make sure that you are aligning yourself with the right strategic partners so that you can answer the mail when those solicitations come out. All right, so now what? I've told you what teaming is. I've told you why it's important. What am I asking you to do now? I'm asking you to plan ahead. These kinds of strategic partnerships do not happen overnight. They generally don't happen once we've issued a sources sought. You know, you don't want to go scrambling and looking for your teammates at that point. You want to start now if you haven't already. Who's already in your sphere, right? Who's already working? Who are you working with? Who's working with you? What's working well? That's where you would start. Identify the Navy ecosystem that aligns best with your capabilities, right? As Teresa mentioned, there are 10 Navy buying commands. So who in the Navy is buying what you're selling? Who else? Those are your strategic partners that you're going to want to connect with, form relationships with. This is relationship building, right? You've got to have trust in order to have these meaningful partnerships, especially when it comes time to looking for mentor-protege relations, mentor-protege agreements. Take advantage of any strategic networking that's in that ecosystem that you're aiming for within the Navy. Is there a local chapter for your target market's industrial association? Attend those events, join those industrial associations. There's your network. Also, make sure that you're educated about the mentor-protege programs that are available to you. I speak to small businesses all the time that are just not aware that there are these really, really amazing tools out there called mentor-protege programs. One is through the Small Business Administration, the SBA mentor-protege program. And there's also DoD mentor-protege programs. I am firsthand seeing that we've got joint ventures as a result of these mentor-protege programs, and they're bidding on our contracts and they're winning. So in my book, that means that they're working. So I would highly encourage all of you to at least become familiar, if you're not already, with those mentor-protege programs that are available to you. So under the mentor-proteges also, you can, as I mentioned before, leverage joint venture partnerships. And in the majority of these mentor-proteges, when I'm seeing proposals coming in, they're coming in as joint ventures. And again, they're winning. So it really, really does behoove you to understand mentor-protege, understand joint ventures, and hopefully that will, lead to forming strong partnerships and submitting proposals that'll win. And with that, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Butler.
And thank you, Ms. Fairclough. We might have a couple minutes for questions. Just a couple minutes. One right here. Okay, you go ahead.
For the DoD Mentor Protege program, Can it be used outside of DoD, and how long does it take to get approved?
That is a great question, and I am going to hand the mic to Miss Teresa Bebout because she is the NAVAIR point of contact for DoD Mentor Protege.
Call me. No, seriously, it depends. And I'm not really sure when you say outside, do you mean like a prime and you go do business with somebody outside? Mentor protege agreements. The ultimate goal is to accomplish a service or a product that the Navy can use in their platform. Does that answer the question? Call me. We'll go back to call me. Stop
Okay.
right there, I'll give you.
One more question.
Question for the teaming partnership of small businesses. They mentioned about the two small businesses like woman-owned to woman-owned. If they join, is that applicable only to the Navy or is that applicable to all agencies?
That is federal acquisition, so it is federal wide. Yes, it's very explicit in our regulations.
Question about the CMMC, because I've heard this from the Army, now the Navy, that there's this mythical pot of gold out there to help with small businesses to meeting the CMMC requirement. So you mentioned it as well. So what's the name of this pot of gold that's out there?
It is project, one word, spectrum, another word. Look it up. I wished I could remember, as many times as I said it last week, I should remember the website, but I don't. But it's Project Spectrum. You register on the website, so have your information available, your cage and your UEI, all that stuff. And then I think they will also try to chat with you, but then they will also reach out to you and they'll tell you there's courses you can take online free of charge that will help you with the rest, with multiple cyber things that they offer. But they will assign some person to work with you, and specifically, Joe will be your best friend for a while. Okay, or Sally.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much. And we want you to be defense industrial base ready.